Be a part of the conversation on Afternoons on the Dove. Call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we are back. Afternoons on the Dove here with our very special guest today, Lorraine Pintus, and she's written a book. I know I'm not supposed to hold the book out. I just want to look. Oh, there, Jump Off the Hormone Swing, and she's looking at this from physical to mental to spiritual, and it is an incredible subject, and this book is an incredible resource. So let me encourage you to get it. It is put out by Moody Press, and get a copy of the book, and especially if you're dealing with this in your family and in your life, this is an incredible resource. And Lorraine, before we get too much further, what is your website?
It's www.lorrainepintus.com, and that's LORRAINEPINTUS. And Perry, can I just make a comment? You said this book was by Moody.
Did I say that?
Isn't that? Yeah, don't you? It is. And don't you find it ironic that the publisher for a book on hormones is Moody?
Touche. Never thought about that. Well, okay, we'll go with that. That's pretty cute.
God has the humor.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is your husband a medical doctor?
Oh, no. He's a PhD in education.
Oh, PhD in education. Well, you've probably helped him do another thesis in his life, right?
Yes, I've done some editing for him.
When we left, I want people to, well, there's so much to this topic. Let's go to the man just for a moment. Why should a man make himself aware of all of this? We've been taught that it's just, a time that you go through and just kind of, that's the time you go hunting for a long time and come back and she'll be better.
I think, Perry, one of the most important things that both a husband and wife can do is educate themselves about the physiological change that a woman is going through. Because men are logical. If you say A plus B equals C, then they go, oh, I get that. I can deal with it. So if we say estrogen is rising, estrogen is falling, and this will make me cranky or tired, he can get that. So once he understands, this isn't something a woman makes up in her mind. It is a scientific, physiological condition that is causing her to react. But the thing for women is we have to understand how to react in healthy and good ways. And the husbands do too. And we need to know what makes our symptoms worse and what makes them better. So it's really quite simple. Educate yourself and know what helps and what doesn't.
All right. Now, when we went into the break, I was asking you the question how important physical workouts are and some kind of physical exercise, and how that plays into not only managing it, but quite frankly, recovering from it.
Oh, it is huge. Do you know that study after study has shown that one of the #1 ways to ease the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of PMS and perimenopause is exercise? And can I just tell you some of the benefits of exercise?
Please.
I mean, it's amazing. Exercise increases your core body temperature, and that eases pain in your joints and muscles. It improves digestion. It lowers blood pressure. It decreases headaches and bloating, and it increases bone strength. These are just a few of the benefits, and it also increases your sex drive. So if that's an issue, I mean, there's just many benefits to exercise that can help a woman feel better.
Well, Lorraine, I know some women that when they get into this phase, they eat a lot. Some starve to death. I'm one of the ones who like to eat. So are there any foods that actually help you and kind of make you feel better or make you feel worse, something that we should avoid?
Absolutely. There are foods that make you feel better, and there are foods that make you feel worse. But you know, Polina, maybe one reason that you're getting some hunger cravings, which is a real side effect of PMS, is because right before the start of your period, your blood sugar levels drop. That can increase your hunger. It can also give you a craving for sweets. So there's a right way and a wrong way to respond to that blood sugar level drop. Let me tell you the wrong way, because I did this. The wrong way is to eat just pure milk chocolate and sugar. Because what that will do is it will make your blood sugar levels spike. And then you'll be angry and you will be the least likely candidate for miscongeniality. You won't be pleasant to be around.
So that's the wrong way, huh? Okay. What's the right way?
The right way would be to reach for something like an apple or a sweet fruit to satisfy that legitimate sweet craving. But don't skyrocket your blood sugar levels because it will make you tense and anxious.
All right. Okay.
Let me say to our listeners, we're talking to Lorraine Pintus, and if you would like to ask her any questions, we'll open up the phone lines. The phone number is 776-5368, and she'll be with us for the next 20 minutes or so. So give us a call, 776-5368. It'd be a great opportunity for you to ask any questions. And if it's safer for you to remain anonymous, we'll certainly respect that and let you ask your question, because sooner or later, you're going to be affected by this. Do you have another question?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to your research that you did with 1,500 women. And were they all Americans, or did you actually interview some of the foreign?
Actually, it was a very mixed group. There were different ethnic groups, different ages, and so I had a very different mixture. And we do find that PMS symptoms change culturally. Like some of the symptoms that are high for Americans are not as high over in some of the Asian cultures, and I cite those in the book.
Was there a number one complaint or something common among all of those women?
There was, Polina, and that's a good question, because the number one complaint of those 1,500 women surprised me. And they said that their biggest frustration with PMS wasn't the headaches or the bloating or those uncomfortable physical symptoms. It was when they opened their mouth and spoke harsh and hurtful words. And so it seemed that like the tension in their body would just rise up and come out their mouth and say things that were hurtful. And that was their biggest frustration with PMS.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's so interesting, Lorraine, is that from a man's perspective, we're trying to be tolerant and understanding. Well, I think the thing we don't get is we believe you know what you're doing. Why just stop it? Don't do that.
Some people don't. And if you can understand that when your estrogen spikes and then it falls, and your progesterone's falling, which is what is happening right before the start of your cycle, you don't think as clearly because estrogen empowers your brain. Okay? If that's at its lowest level, now this is not a reason not to elect a woman as president of the United States. Okay? I just want to say that.
Okay.
Physiologically, and it affects different women differently, I had a pretty severe estrogen drop, so I didn't think as clearly. What I normally could handle, I couldn't handle as well. But I'll tell you what, 1 week later, when my estrogen started picking up, you give me any job to do, I could handle it. I was on fire, I was confident, I could do things. Those kinds of energy feelings were directly derived from the escalation of estrogen. And the frustration and the not thinking clearly and saying things you don't mean was directly related to the fall. But that doesn't mean that we can blame PMS for bad behavior. And we can't. And I make that very clear in the book.
Okay.
And give people strategies.
What about the whole issue of supplements during this time? Because there's been great controversy. Some work, some don't. Maybe it's more of a dietary control, mood swing, or you want to get organic. I mean, all of those things. But we have seen a lot of reports in the news lately that a lot of women who are taking estrogen supplements, in fact, wasn't good for them.
Mm-hmm, that's right. And truthfully, Perry, there is a small percentage of women. Maybe they've had a hysterectomy. Maybe they have very severe imbalances. There's a small percentage of women who really can be helped through supplements, through natural supplements, bioidentical. However, I would say that the majority of the women, probably 75 to 80% of the women who have PMS and perimenopause, can really be helped by changing what they eat, changing lifestyle patterns, and getting some good, fresh attitude changes, which I talk about in the book. Most of them can be helped that way.
How do you ask God, who created you this way, to change you?
Well, I think God knows how he created us. The problem is we're putting a lot of things in our body that God didn't create. There are so many refined products out there. Refined flour, that's practically foreign to your body. Refined sugar, it's practically a chemical if you reduce it down, what that little grain of white is. And we're putting that in our body, and we put chemicals and pesticides in our bodies. We shampoo our hair. All these things go into our bodies, and they produce something called a xenoestrogen. And xeno means foreign. It's a foreign estrogen in our body, and it throws off our hormone balance.
Polina?
So to reduce the exposure to this xenoestrogen, reduced food intake of all this refined product, what else can we do?
I list the 5 categories. There's 5 categories and I list them in my book. Foods is one category, and these would be hormone-injected milk and meats. You know what they are probably. Plastics, you've heard about that. It produces EPA, which is a xenoestrogen, which goes into your body. Cleaning products, some of your cleaning products around your house, personal care and beauty products like shampoos. Anyway, those 5 categories are listed, and you can see those in the book. And basically, I just try to reduce the xenoestrogens as much as possible. But, the thing that we've got to be aware of as women is women are suffering from PMS and perimenopause much more these days than they did back in the 1900s.
Sooner?
Because they didn't have these products.
Are you saying the modern woman is experiencing this sooner?
Absolutely, and much more intensely. And one just interesting factor, I'll just give you one statistic that shows that we have too much estrogen in our environment, is, when my great-grandmother was born around the 1900s, breast cancer was 1 in 91. Today, it's 1 in 8. And breast cancer is directly tied to estrogen. And women are getting more estrogen through the products they use and what they eat these days than they did in my great-grandma's day, because these products didn't exist. Nobody had Tupperware back then, or a microwave. And if you microwave a Tupperware, it's got BPA in it. It leaches into your food and puts estrogen into your body. And guess what, ladies? It not only does it for us, but for our children and our men. And we need to kind of think about the consequences of what could be happening there.
Fascinating topic. Lorraine, we're going to take one more break and come back. And we're talking to Lorraine Pintus. She's authored a book, Jump Off the Hormone Swing. And I want to encourage you, this is an incredible resource for both men and women, wives and husbands. And so you can get it. It's published by Moody Press. We say Moody. She kind of gave us the double meaning there. But Moody really is a fine Christian organization. But anyway, you can get it there at the bookstore, and we have some,
And we have one copy here that we're going to give away to listeners.
We're going to give this away coming up in a few moments. So be listening. Who knows? You could win it. And one more time, Lorraine, before we take a break, your website.
LorrainePintus.com.
LorrainePintus.com. That's Pintus.com. All right, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back, and what a joy, and a special guest with us today, Lorraine Pintus. She's authored a book. I'll get to look at it. I got to look at it. Jump Off the Hormone Swing. She's got me so ratcheted up, I got to start jumping somewhere. Anyway, it's an incredible book. It's a great resource for men and women, and she has authored this book out of experience. And so, Lorraine, I want to say, first of all, thank you for doing it. What a resource.
Oh, thank you. I'm just pleased to be able to share what I've learned with others.
That's wonderful. All right, Polina, I think you had some questions there.
Yes. Well, I do want people to read the book, and we are going to give a copy away. So, and I'm not going to give it all away, but I do want you to talk a little bit about the spiritualize And what are those?
Hmm.
Can you give a little
Okay.
overview?
I'll just describe a situation to you that happened to me. I had horrible PMS, and I was sitting on my closet floor, and I felt this very evil presence around me, and I heard this whispering in my head, Lorraine, just give up. Just you're just absolutely worthless, and you have no value. In fact, the whole world would be better without you. And I saw this pair of pantyhose hanging on my hamper, and the thought came into my head, why don't you just kill yourself? And at that moment, I realized that I was in a battle with the enemy of my soul. And I knew it was tied to PMS, but I didn't understand why the devil cared about my PMS until God took me in the scriptures and showed me a bunch of things. And the main thing he showed me is there is a spiritual battle over a woman's PMS. And once we recognize the spiritual battle, we can know how to fight it.
Mm-hmm. So when I was talking to guys before we have guys here. So I was talking to guys about the book. And I mean, the title is Jump Off the Hormone Swing. When you jump off, it is nice when someone catches you, right? I mean, it's nice to have support. So what if you don't have a husband? Or what if your husband is not as good as Perry? Hopefully.
Well, I pray then, Polina, the one that catches them is God. And God really did catch me in this whole thing. In fact, the biggest revelation was that even though PMS made me feel miserable, and at times I just wanted to give up, it was in those moments of great weakness that God came and met me, and he said, Lorraine, I am here. When you are weak, then I am strong. And just like Paul, I don't know if you remember, he talked about having a thorn in his flesh, and he asked God to remove it. And I asked God to remove my PMS, but God said, Lorraine, my grace is sufficient for you. But then he added this, my power will be made perfect in your weakness. And I didn't really understand that until I was at my weakest point. And I saw it was in those moments that God came and he gave me strength. And he rose me up, and he really brought me to the place where I actually thank God for my PMS, because it made me a better wife, a better Christian, a better mother, because I was more dependent on God.
You know, you are a living example of something I say quite often on the air. Whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he usually turns you around and makes you a minister too. So you're a living example of that.
Yeah. I just want women to see the spiritual battle and not dismiss it, say, oh, it's just PMS. No, sometimes things escalate into World War III. You've got to open your eyes and go, there's more going on here than just PMS.
When women are suffering with this, will they receive their husband's attempt to be gracious? Or will they? Is it kind of like a double psychology where you're just saying that because I'm suffering? I mean, it sounds like the poor guy's in a corner. He just can't get out. If he does it meaningfully, it's not received meaningfully, and if he does it harshly, you're saying, well, then you're not being considerate. It's almost an endless circle.
Yeah, and every woman and every husband is different. And you bring up a good point. Husbands almost feel like they can't do anything right. So what I would suggest they do is go on my website and download the free article under resources that says PMS Tips for Husbands. And the two of you sit down and talk about it. And then, for instance, the husband could ask his wife a question. Honey, when you're feeling this way, does it help for me to put my arms around you and tell you I love you and affirm you? And she may say yes. And he says, does it help if I offer some suggestions? And she'll probably say, no, I don't want you to fix anything. I just need to be held. And when you try to fix it, that makes me angry. So it's talking and understanding what works for one wife and what works for one husband. And they can come together with some strategies.
Is there a cutoff age? I mean, is there age women should look forward to when it's just going to be over?
Yeah, menopause, because your cycle has stopped and you don't have this up and down fall. We can become a little bit more like men in that respect, because men don't have a rise and fall of testosterone, which is in their body. They just sort of have this steady rise and then a steady decline. They don't have the ups and downs that we have.
Okay,
so when menopause hits, it's done.
So theoretically, all the women after menopause should be happy and wonderful.
Yeah. Now, there's still some hormones going on there, but by then your body's fairly stable.
Lorraine, well, I guess men don't look for a payback, but and that certainly shouldn't be part of the equation. But does the woman really ever understand what the poor guy's trying to do?
I think if they talk about it, they do. I'm going to tell you right now, Perry, my husband is my hero, because he sat me down, not during when I had PMS, but we sat down and we looked at what's going on. We analyzed together, when I had my great thinking mind and my estrogen was high, some strategies. Like, for instance, we applied what we called the 3-day rule. So during PMS, there were certain topics like finances or discipline with the kids that we didn't talk about in those 3 days, because estrogen wasn't my predominant hormone. So that meant my brain may not have been thinking as clearly and brilliantly as usual. So we developed this strategy, 3-day rule. We won't talk about those subjects for 3 days. I mean, that's just one of 10 strategies I give.
Oh, any questions?
There are women, I'm sure, out there who think, well, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to suffer. It's just the way I was created, and there's nothing I'm going to do about it. What do you say to those?
You know, I say there are so many things you can do to take the edge off of anything, and I say no, you don't need to suffer. As we alluded to early, Polina, there are things in our environment that are coming into our body that is upsetting our hormone balance and making it worse. If we understand what those things are and we reduce that, that's one thing we can do. If we understand that exercise is a proven way to help relieve these symptoms, we put an exercise program in place. If we understand which foods trigger horrible symptoms and which alleviate them, and which vitamins alleviate those symptoms, we're wise. We don't suffer, we're wise. We put those things in place because we need to be all we can be so we can do what God's called us to do.
Well, Lorraine, this has been fascinating, and I'd love to have you back. And we want to encourage our listeners to certainly investigate getting this book, Jump Off the Hormone Swing, and by Lorraine Pintus. It's available at all the bookstores, and her website is Lorraine Pintus, that's PINTUS.com, and you can go there for a bunch more resources. Thank you for your work. Where is this leading you? I got to assume this topic's bigger than anything you ever imagined.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing some speaking on it because I really want women to understand the battle. But the other thing is, Perry, in the book, there is a Bible study. It's the first book with a Bible study on this subject. Mm-hmm. I want women to understand their bodies, and I want them to stop cursing menstruation and instead see an incredible truth. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but an incredible truth, a spiritual truth that God showed me about the shedding of blood and why women do that, and that it's a noble thing. Wow. So I want to also help change women's attitudes about this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lorraine, and thank you for letting us wire you all up via Skype and everything else. We were, I'm sure, a pretty good technical challenge to you today, but thank you for being with us, and I look forward to getting you back one day live on the television program as well.
Thank you so much, Perry. And Polina, thank you so much for your wise questions.
Thank you, Lorraine. Okay. And I just want to say that it's not a medical book, it's a mentoring book, and it does have some good advice.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.